We'll get started in just a bit. We're just gonna let everyone in. Everyone get acclimated, say hi. Go ahead and use the chat, say hi. If you're new here, let us know so I can give you a rundown. If you've been before, welcome back. We are gonna be talking about boundaries today. I'm excited. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get on with the learning lesson for today. If it's okay with you, I'm just gonna go ahead and mute you, but at any time, feel free to write in the chat if you have any questions or raise your hand. And for welcome to everyone that is new, I was just checking out the chat. Hi to familiar faces. I see Eugenia and Tamala, Tammy and Lisa. Hello, hello. And hi to Kristen and Julie. But for tonight, I want to get started with these boundaries with an avoidant because I think this is a really important topic to be discussing because in relationships, right? Sometimes we can constantly feel like we're walking on eggshells. And if you're bending over backwards and you're trying to get someone's attention all the time, then this is going to be for you. This topic is so important. We're going to get real about this as well, and we're going to dive in. So, for anyone that is new, this is our support session. So, I want to know first and foremost. So, go ahead and open up the chat. Um, Let me know. Have you ever been in a situation where you're trying to connect with someone? Maybe you're trying to open up and bam, they pull away like they're practically allergic to feelings or vulnerability. And you're just sitting there and you're thinking, what the hell just happened? I want to hear from you. Drop it in the chat if this has ever happened to you. You could just say yes. You can say me. You could tell me what happened. Yes. Yeah. If you're just sitting there and you're like, what the hell? Like, where did this? Why did he just do this? Like, what's going on? I want to know how you handled it. Did you chase them down? Did you send a whole bunch of texts and say, hey, just talk to me? What's going on? What's happening here? Did you try to fix it? Did you yourself pull away? Did you try to walk away yourself? Or did you just get fed up and you're just done and you blew up and you blocked them on the phone and this is like your third time blocking them? Yeah, lots of yeses in the chat. So I want you to know that you're not alone. Okay. And there's no judgment here, no matter what it was that you did or said in the moment. There's never any judgment. We've all been there. And I want to break down the three key things that you need to know about setting boundaries with an avoidant. And these are practical, effective strategies that can actually make a difference. Stuff that you can use right away to protect your peace. So, first up, we're going to talk about boundaries that are based on what you can control. Because guess what? You can't control your partner, can you? No, but you sure as hell can control yourself. So, we're going to dive into next why you need to stop turning your boundaries into ultimatums. We're going to cut that out, okay? Because they don't work and they only push people further away. And finally, we're going to talk about how to repeat your boundaries without sounding like a broken record, but also without losing your cool because you've got to be firm when you do these, but you also need to be compassionate. So let's get into these. These 3 points are your roadmap to protecting your peace and not letting your partner wreck your whole emotional energy. All right, so let's start with the first one. Set boundaries based on what you can control. If you've ever been in a racial relationship with someone who pulls away, there's so much confusion in that moment. One minute they're distant, the next minute they're coming close to you. It's exhausting. And I've had clients go through this cycle over and over, and they don't realize how much they're sacrificing themselves to fix their partner's distance. So let me tell you a story. One of my clients, I'm going to call her Jackie, and Jackie's in a relationship with a partner who we suspect is avoidant, who often goes silent for days at a time. And at first, she felt like this was her fault, constantly overthinking her text and wondering if she had said something wrong. And after working through the 12 modules that we do in our relationship reboot program, she became more secure. She started learning that her partner's withdrawal wasn't about her. It was about him needing space to feel safe. So do you hear that? It's not about you. It's about them needing space. It keeps them safe. But she was constantly jumping into fix it mode, thinking that if she just chased him down or apologized, it would bring them closer together. But it didn't. It just made her feel more drained and it just caused more disconnection. So I helped her see that she doesn't have to chase him to fix things. Okay. You can set boundaries based on what you can control. You can decide not to engage if he doesn't reach out. That's a boundary. And she was blown away by the relief of realizing that she didn't have to twist herself into knots trying to fix things that weren't hers to fix in the first place. So she stopped reaching out when he went silent. This was huge, very huge. If any of you have ever tried to not reach out when he's gone silent, you know how hard it is. Your body is pulling you towards him. And when we waited, okay, and waited to the last minute, he came back to her and started making plans. Okay. And so now she's like, well, I don't know what to do. He started making plans. I have to drop everything. What am I supposed to do? I was like, no, you can just say you're busy this weekend. And guess what? This shifted the entire dynamic in the relationship. Not because she controlled him, but because she took back control over her own emotional energy. She set an emotional boundary for herself to not take his actions as a personal attack. And she set a time boundary by saying no to last minute requests when it didn't feel right for her. So, from a science standpoint, avoidant attachment is typically rooted in early childhood experiences, right? Those of you that are familiar with this, we know that. But this is where your emotional needs were either neglected or dismissed as a child. So, avoidants, they often develop this self protective mechanism where they shut down or withdraw when things get too emotionally intense. And according to attachment theory, these early patterns, they lead to a deep fear of being engulfed or overwhelmed by others. So as a result, he might appear emotionally distant, emotionally unavailable. He might appear like he's not even into you, but that's his way of managing anxiety around closeness. So it's not about you. I want to make that very clear. So if you've been in a relationship with someone and they are acting this way, you've probably noticed that when they start to pull away, your instinct is to go toward them and keep chasing them and keep going closer. But in reality, the more you chase, what do we think is going to happen? They're going to keep withdrawing. Yes, exactly, Lynette. Yeah, they're just going to keep going. They're going to push you away. They're going to run away. They're going to hide because this is their way. Avoidants are great at setting boundaries. We can honestly learn a little bit from them, right? But this is what's happening. They're just protecting their peace. But that doesn't mean we have to put up with it. Okay. It just means we don't have to take it personally anymore. It means we have to check in with our own peace and we have to decide what are we willing to tolerate. Right? So here's the truth. You can't control them, but you can control you. And that right there is where your power truly lies. Now I want to talk about ultimatums real quick. I know the temptation is to throw out an ultimatum. Okay. God, do they work sometimes? I know they really do because that is strong, especially when you're frustrated. Like, if you don't do this, we're done. Right. That was mine. I always threatened to break up. But here's the truth. Ultimatums are not the magic fix. All they do is turn the relationship into a power struggle. Why do you think an ultimatum works? Because now all of a sudden you have the power. But that's not what you want in a relationship, is it? You want to be on the same team. It's like saying, if you don't do this, then I'm out, which doesn't exactly leave room for real connection, does it? So let me give you an example. So Jackie, when she came to me thinking that she had her boundaries figured out, we were working on this for a while. She was convinced that setting clear boundaries with her avoidant partner is exactly what she needed to do. But after we kept digging deeper, we discovered something really important. She wasn't just setting boundaries at all. What she thought were boundaries were actually ultimatums. So here's the thing. Jackie thought that if she just told him, you need to text me after our date or else this isn't going to work. Like that's what she said. Now this would somehow, in her mind think that he's going to respect her boundaries. And things he did. It worked. She'd say stuff like that, thinking it was a clear boundary. He would follow through and it would work for a little while. What do you think happened? He started getting resentful. He started getting scared. He started getting too overwhelmed. And this ultimatum was furthering their disconnection. He would text her after a date because, hey, nobody wants to hear that the relationship won't work. But eventually he'd go right back to his old behaviors and Jackie would end up frustrated and hurt all over again. She was emotionally drained and just feeling like nothing was ever changing, wondering why he wasn't respecting her. But the difference, okay, this is the difference. A boundary isn't a demand for the other person to change. Do you remember key point number 1? Can we control them? No. Who can we control? Yes, exactly, Julie. Love it. Yes, exactly. A boundary isn't a demand for the other person to change. It's an internal decision for what you will or won't tolerate. Yes, Cindy, it's our boundary. I love that so much. Exactly. She thought that by telling him what to do, text me after this date or else, she was setting a boundary. Well, what she was actually doing was asking him to behave in a certain way to avoid an emotional consequence. Because when he doesn't text her, she feels sad. So now you must do a thing to make me not sad. And what we worked on was understanding that a boundary, it's not about them. Okay. It's about deciding what behavior you will or won't accept and then sticking to it regardless of their reaction. She didn't need to tell him, you need to text me. She needed to decide what she would do if he didn't. See the difference? Does it hit different when you think about it that way? She needed to be clear about what she would do to protect her peace, not try to force him to change to protect her peace. So instead of saying, you need to text me or this isn't going to work, Jackie simply said, I really love hearing from you after our dates. It helps me feel connected to you. Same thing, isn't it? It's exactly saying the same thing, but one is actually way more vulnerable than the other. She actually was able to speak to him in a way of what she needed, not an ultimatum. And if he didn't text, because again, he's human, she would go out and live her big, juicy life without stressing over what he was or wasn't doing. She stopped taking it personally and started seeing it for what it was, that this is a part of who he is. And then she gets to make the decision, do I want to be with someone who is like this? But she didn't need to demand anything from him. She just needed to decide how she would respond to his behavior. She chose to focus on herself and her own happiness, knowing that whether or not he reached out, she was going to be okay. And by doing that, she wasn't just sitting around waiting for him to show up in a way, to meet her needs and get everything met. She was living her life, enjoying herself no matter what. And that, ladies, is how you protect your peace. Okay. So, lastly, key point number 3, repeat your boundaries calmly and compassionately. Because here's the thing, setting a boundary is not a one and done deal. Okay. It takes time to reinforce them, and that's okay. You might even have to remind yourself of your own boundaries over and over and over again. And again, that's totally normal. So don't get frustrated if it doesn't stick right away. And now here's some science behind that. So habits, they do not happen overnight. And studies show that it takes at least 21 days to form a new habit in our brains. That's the way our neurons are firing and wiring together in our minds in a way in which it creates a habit. And a habit is just something you do naturally, right? Sometimes it can take even longer depending on the complexity of the behavior. But if you want to actually be doing this, you need to let them know at least 10 times. That's what they show in latency in children, that it can take them 10 times to be told what to do until they actually do it. And sometimes our men are just like that. So when you're in this state and you said, well, I told him that already, I'm going to tell you, great, tell him again and again and again in a loving, compassionate way, because it's not about you anymore. And it's going to get so much easier. So when Jackie started setting her boundaries, she had to remind herself that sometimes multiple times a day, she had to remind herself this. She had to tell herself, if he doesn't text, I'm not going to chase him. Like, I think we had on her phone at one point in time, do not chase, right? Like, I'm going to go live my big, juicy life. And I'm going to trust that in this relationship and even outside of it, that I'm enough. So that was a big thing for her. We worked on her wounding where she didn't feel like she was enough for him. And she learned she is enough. And here's the key. The more she repeated this to herself, the easier it became to hold that boundary. Not only did her own resilience grow, but so did the strength of their relationship. So when her partner no longer felt that angry, hurt energy coming from her, when she stopped chasing him and started showing up with calm, clear, solution oriented mindsets, things began to shift in her relationship. And instead of feeling pressured, Jackie was able to express that she loved hearing from him after dates because it made her feel connected, right? We talked about that. That's what she could tell him now. And this new way of communicating opened the door for him to come closer because now he felt safer. So eventually she was able to have a big conversation with him where she calmly expressed that this was something she really needed in the relationship. And she realized that after giving it a fair chance, if he couldn't show up in this way, I think we decided it was about 3 months. I like to set time frames for stuff like this, just so that way we're clear on what we want to work on. And that way, when it's only been 2 days, we know that we still have, 58 more days to go. No, I can't do math. 88 more days to go if she's doing 3 months. Then she could decide to walk away at that time. But if she could hold to her boundaries, if she could speak her needs, if she could communicate clearly, compassionately, and connectedly, then she knew that she could show up in this relationship. She knew that her worth and what she deserved was okay. So Jackie's ability to set and reinforce boundaries was a game changer, not just for her relationship, but for her own sense of self-worth. And that's how boundaries create the foundation for a healthy, secure relationship. Because when you know you're worthy, you can experience the peace you deserve. So now let's recap real quick. So first and foremost, right, what are we going to do? We're going to set boundaries based on what? Based on controlling our partners? That's right. Based on controlling Julie. That's what she said. Yes. No. We're all going to control Julie, and this is going to go really well. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to set boundaries that we can control. And we can go through that. If you guys are wondering, you're like, I don't know what the hell that is, Jen. I've never set a boundary. I thought boundaries were telling him to like stop going out with his friends on Friday nights. Great. You came to the right place because that's not a boundary, right? That's a demand. That's an ultimatum. So set boundaries for yourself. What do you want to do? Okay. Now, next, we want to set boundaries without ultimatums. We really want to be able to not express to our partners and not hold the stuff over their head, because that's not being on the same team, right? We want to be on the same team with them consistently. That's what boundaries are for. Boundaries keep us closer together. They don't push us away. And then lastly, I want you to repeat your boundaries a lot. I want you to do it calmly and compassionately, because now you know it's not about you. It's about them. And now you know that all you're doing is they're going to get off course, and you're just going to course correct them back again. And they're going to go off, and you're going to be like, come back again, baby. And we're going to do it lovingly because we love them. And that's what we're here for. So our reflection questions for the week, which if I have them somewhere, but these are reflection questions for the week. Oh my gosh. Hey, look at past Jen being organized. I think that might be the journal prompts. Can you double check that for me, Lynette? Or unless you're on your phone, then don't worry about it. But these are the questions. Oh, thank you, Julie. Thank you. These are the questions for the week. So what I love giving out journal prompts during our weekly support sessions like this, because it gives you something to think about. It's a completely fillable PDF, so you can use it right now to fill it out if you want to. You can also just take these questions and reflect on them, maybe during your walks or your meditations, or maybe journal about them, or just when your mind is racing. Input these questions instead, and that will help you. So first, what boundary can you set today that reflects what you can control? How can you express your boundaries without making them feel like ultimatums? And lastly, have you struggled to repeat your boundaries calmly? And what could you do differently next time in order to do that? Right. So think of those questions as we move into our Q&A as well. And I just want to say thank you all so much for being here, and let's get started with the Q&A.